The recidivism rates, I actually wrote my doctoral dissertation on this. I compared New York state-run prisons to privatized prisons in Florida, and the recidivism rate between state-run prisons in New York that had actual treatment versus privately run prisons in Florida that really have bare bones treatment. State-run prisons in New York, the recidivism rate, the chances of somebody going back to prison within 3 years of being released was something like 33% or something like that, which is pretty standard. In Florida, it was something insane, like 76%.
Yep,
like that means if you go to prison in Florida and you get out within 3 years, it's almost guaranteed you're going to come back to prison because there are no GED programs. There's basically no substance abuse program, no real mental health, no rehabilitation. You don't learn trade. They don't care. They're just
Cause they thought I'd never make it. See me fall down and they celebrate it. Learn how to win with no demonstration. How about the cool got a ventilated? Cause I can't see shit out on 95. Prolific little bitch, I see dollar signs. The shit I done seen got me traumatized. Tryna clear all the pain in my mama's eyes. And my daughter, she watching me closely. Tryna better myself like I should be. Had to chill out with all of that street shit. I came a long way, but don't push me. Rest in peace to my bro, it ain't right, dawg. 20 bands, nothing that's light sauce. Hit the booth and I turn all the lights off. Gotta get in my zone. Gotta turn on my phone, cause all them smiles is fake and I see it. Bad guy, if I got it, I'll be it. Baptized, but I'm living with demons. Trap vibes, so I'm cashing out Neiman's. No face, swear these bitches is heathens, but I don't need them though. Keep my moves quiet, you don't need to know.
Remember last time?
Yeah. That's why I hit it that hard.
Make sure.
Yeah, seriously.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Prolific Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Berto.
And your other boy, Will here.
Checking in 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
We have a very special guest. This is episode number 40 for Prolific
40.
Podcast.
Let me get another applause for that.
Talk about consistency.
That's a milestone, yeah.
That's a milestone. We got to celebrate.
I feel like celebrate small wins. 40 is that's actually a lot bigger number than we
expected. Yeah. Well, actually not expected. Just we didn't even think that far out, honestly.
No.
40.
40.
Good
shit.
We cheers to that? Let's just that.
Yeah, let's
just that.
Actually, let's just start it with the. This is the
initial
cheers, but initial for Dr. Lina being the number 40. This is a very special episode.
So, if you're tuning in, this is episode number 40. As we mentioned, Prolific Podcast. We have a very special guest, as always.
Always.
What do we do here?
That's all we do.
That's all we do here.
That's all we do.
Give you a little quick sneak peek, a little proper introduction, as we always do. A very special guest here today that's joining us. She is a licensed clinical psychologist. Licensed clinical psychologist and mental health counselor. All right. She specializes in many different areas, like psychodiagnostic assessment, forensic assessment, depression, anxiety, just to name a few. Over 20 years of clinical experience working with adults in inpatient and outpatient settings from clinics, hospitals, correctional facilities in different states, including New York. Just wanted to point it out there. hometown, New York, New Jersey, Cali, and now in the sunshine state of Florida.
Yes.
Her goal is to continue to help the community by accurately diagnosing and identifying patient strengths and areas in order to better individualize treatment needs. She's definitely changing the game in the mental health realm and just in the profession as overall. Mm-hmm. So everybody give a warm welcome, prolific welcome to our guest, Dr. Lina Haji. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Even though she looks Cubana.
Well, wait. In New York, I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah, Puerto Rican,
in
for sure.
California, I'm Mexican. And in Florida, I'm Cuban. So it depends.
Right.
But thank you for having me.
The trifecta.
Yeah. Puerto Rico. I mean, you know how it is in New York, like that. You'll definitely pass for Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Didn't they just have the Puerto Rican festival?
The parade, yeah.
Last weekend.
You went to your festival?
I did not.
She was out there with like the big flag, like.
I did not.
Nacho nene. Now, just going off of what he just said, as far as your intro, what does that mean as far as like accurately diagnosing? Do you feel like the vast majority of people are not being accurately diagnosed?
I wouldn't say the vast majority. I think a lot of people are self-diagnosing. They're just kind of, especially these days with social media, they're just kind of seeing stuff on TikTok or Instagram and saying, oh, I must have this, I must have that, because they've seen one symptom or they've seen somebody else who reminds them of what they're going through, things like that, or they're going to people who are not qualified to diagnose, or
AKA ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, unlicensed professionals, people who are not thorough enough. So I don't think it's the vast majority, but I think it's definitely a problem for sure.
Now, as far as like, what do you think of like the buzzwords that are being thrown around nowadays? Like, oh, you're like toxicity, or like you're a narcissist, or you're a sociopath. Like, do you think that has a lot to do with it, where it's just like you do one bad thing, or like someone doesn't like what you did and it's like, oh, that person's a narcissist, or like that person's a sociopath?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a segment on my Instagram called Trendy Term Thursday where I just address exactly that. So I've addressed toxic, I've addressed codependent, narcissistic, borderline, depressed, even run of the mill terms like I'm depressed or I'm anxious. And it's like, no, you're just sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's really literally one of my pet peeves when people just take these terms and just blanket statement them without knowing really truly what they mean. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be, we're all human. Yeah, I'm not insensitive, but like even I'm guilty of using them. I'd be like, that person is toxic as hell or whatever. Everybody, we use them, but I think the problem is that people tend to overuse them and use them in erroneous situations. And now everyone's a narcissist and everyone's codependent and everyone's toxic. And it's like, I think people are much more complicated than that. And it's more gray than that. And I think that's where it becomes problematic, where we're just labeling people or mislabeling.
Now, then off of like we were talking offline, how do you think one should approach a quote unquote narcissistic person?
So I think everybody has narcissistic traits. Everybody's capable of being selfish or be into themselves or have their ego take over. Somebody who truly has narcissistic personality disorder is a whole nother level. That's an egomaniac, a selfish person, somebody who cannot take accountability to another level. So it's complex, just like most mental health issues are. But my best advice is not to engage because it's just going to drive you nuts. The person is not going to take accountability. They're not going to see their fault in anything. They're not going to change without some kind of intervention. And so in order for somebody to keep their own sanity, my best advice in dealing with a narcissist is just put a firm boundary and don't go there, or else you're gonna drive yourself nuts.
Now, do you see narcissism like is it predominantly more in men or women, or is it like 50-50?
Ironically, the rate for narcissism is much lower than we think it is. It's actually only about, I think, not even 2% in the community. I think it's a little higher in correctional facilities, but we now, like what you just pointed out with everybody self-diagnosing or self-labeling, we think narcissists are all over the place, right? And it's like, it's like just because they lied to you or they cheated on you or they manipulated or they did something you didn't like does not make them a narcissist. Like narcissistic personality disorder is super toxic to a whole nother level. I don't think people get that. Do I think it's more prevalent in men? I would have to look at the research on that. It might be a little bit more prevalent in men, but not by much. There are a lot of not a lot, but there are narcissistic women as well. It just might display itself a little bit differently. Yeah.
Do you think because they say like women are more like in tune with their emotions or emotional, quote unquote emotional, that maybe that could be masking it?
Maybe, but I think that's also another stereotype that women are more in tune with their emotions. I don't know that women are more in tune with their emotions. I think they might display their emotions differently than men do. But I see what you're saying. It depends. I think that's another one of my pet peeves is that we tend to assume things with different genders. And I think it's just different in every single individual. And that's the problem. We're not individualizing humans anymore. We're just throwing them into these boxes, whether they're male or female or transgender or gay, straight, old, young, black, white, rich, poor, whatever,
Now, with you've been in the correctional facility, like working in correction facilities for, you said like 20 years now. Now you've worked in California, Florida, New Jersey, and New York, right? Out of all of those states, so now we have like North, South, and West. Where have you seen like the most like detrimental like mental health in men?
Florida, hands down.
Yikes.
Really?
Florida prisons are the absolute worst, and I don't hold back saying that. They're privatized prisons. They're profit driven. They do not care about mental health. They do not care about rehabilitation. They do not care about helping people. They care about making money, hands down. And I could potentially be affecting my pockets by saying that, but I have to speak my truth. It's absolutely egregious. The mental health in the Florida prison systems is egregious.
No, it's just like there's no there's no programs, or it's just like
there's no programs, there's no resources, they're understaffed. I'll give you an example. In California, and I'm not saying California prisons or Florida or New York prisons or New Jersey prisons that don't have their issues. I'm not saying that. But for example, I worked at a prison that was an inpatient kind of psych prison in California. There were 24 psychologists, 24 social workers, about 16 forensic psychiatrists, music and art therapists, for about, I would say, 1,500 inmates. Jeez. In Florida, there's two psychologists, one ARNP, maybe 3 or 4 social workers for the same amount of inmates. So it's not even the staff's fault. It's just, how do you treat 1,500 inmates?
It's literally impossible.
It's literally impossible.
Yeah.
You're literally just like all they care about is liability. Don't kill yourself. Don't kill anybody else. Are you suicidal? Are you homicidal? No. Next. Are you suicidal? Are you homicidal? No. Next. Are you that's the treatment. There is no. Whereas in California, I could do an actual 1-hour therapy session because it's more progressive and it was state run and there were more resources. I could do a 1-hour therapy session every week with an inmate. In Florida, that's never happening. You're going cell side just to make sure they haven't hung themselves, and that's it. It's absolutely egregious.
Now, have you seen like a trend in anything, like in the West Coast or like California? Like they're more known to, I don't know, like molestation or something. Like I don't know, like as far as like the mental health, like the reasoning behind the mental health issue. Like, do you see a trend in anything as far as like the obviously male inmates?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure there's been studies on this. I think the amount of whether it's violent offenses, sex offenses, drug offenses, petty theft, I think it's pretty standard all over the place. Obviously, you're going to see more crime in impoverished neighborhoods. Obviously, you're going to see more ethnic inmates because of the socioeconomic status in impoverished neighborhoods. It's a trickle-down effect. We all know this. As far as the mental health, no, I think it's pretty much the same all over the place. It's the way it's treated. The recidivism rates. I actually wrote my doctoral dissertation on this. I compared New York state-run prisons to privatized prisons in Florida, and the recidivism rate between state-run prisons in New York that had actual treatment versus privately run prisons in Florida that really have bare bones treatment. The recidivism rate was completely different.
And what's recidivism?
Recidivism is the act of recommitting a crime once you get out of prison.
Kind of like relapse.
Recidivism rates are hard to measure because you have to. Is it because they got rearrested, reconvicted? Have they committed a crime that they haven't gotten caught for? But basically, what I found was it was something crazy. Like in state-run prisons in New York, the recidivism rate, the chances of somebody going back to prison within 3 years of being released was something like 33% or something like that, which is pretty standard. In Florida, it was something insane, like 76%. Like that means if you go to prison in Florida and you get out within 3 years, it's almost guaranteed you're going to come back to prison because there are no GED programs. There's basically no substance abuse program, no real mental health, no rehabilitation. You don't learn trade. They don't care. They did away with parole. It's just a mess.
And also affects their, impact, and their integration back into society as well. Like
absolutely. Coming
out of that, like a lot of times, again, just the lack of resources, they're back into these systems because of the lack of the resources and the mental, like it's, where do you think that even begins? Like, where do you think changing that even begins?
I think it begins in schools. I think it begins in schools and it begins at home. The average inmate has a 4th grade reading level nationwide. 4th grade reading level. Like I've sometimes had to give psychological assessments to inmates, but I can't because they can't read and write. So it's like, okay,
you can't even do your job.
I can't even do my job, So
wow,
it's mind blowing. So I think that it starts in the schools. I've been doing a lot of juvenile evaluations and juvenile work. I was actually at the juvenile center, the juvenile jail today for like 2-3 hours. And it's just mind blowing. You see these kids that nobody cares if they show up to school. Mom's addicted to drugs, dad's in prison or dad's absent, and they started selling weed to feed their siblings. Like I'm not making excuses for their behaviors, but they had to survive. So that a 19-year-old kid selling weed because he needs to eat and his mother is strung out on drugs and his father's absent is very different from like a 45-year-old pedophile.
Yeah.
Those are two different kinds of criminals, right?
Yeah.
The problem is we just lump them together. We
Yeah.
just throw them in the same prison with the same programs, same resources. And it's like, no. The 19-year-old kid, he needs mentorship. He needs maybe some sports. He needs someone to talk to, a counselor. He needs support. He needs community resources. He needs help with school. He needs to,
He needs guidance.
He needs guidance.
Fucking guidance.
The 45-year-old pedophile, that's a whole other ballgame. That guy needs sex offender treatment, and he may or may not change. Those are two different kinds of criminals, and yet we lump them together, and that's one of the biggest problems with corrections.
Now, do you see just in like the inmates that you've over the 20 years that you've been doing this, like, do you see the issues stemming more like with the parents? Do you see it stemming more towards like issues with their mother or issues with their father?
That's a really good question. I think I can't really break it down in like percentages. I think I do see a lot of absentee fathers. Either dad just was never there, or dad is incarcerated, or dad is barely there or has another family. I mean, we know this to be true, that kids tend to end up more in the maternal care, but then, mom is carrying everything by herself.
Yep. And
if mom has her own mental health issues or substance abuse issues or criminality, or she's in and out of jail, the kid ends up with nobody raising them. So I don't want to fault people. I don't want to say it's dad's fault, it's mom's fault. I mean, it's a whole complex, society fault, but that's what I tend to see. I see a lot of absent dads, a lot.
I just thought about that because I obviously like hear like of daddy issues, like, with like either women or just in general. And I was wondering if it's like you saw anything with like, oh, I have issues with my mother and this is why I kind of turned to that life, or.
Yeah, again, I mean, daddy issues, that term stems from an actual thing. But the funny thing is, it's not just girls that have daddy issues, it's boys that have daddy issues. You're angry because you didn't have a father, or you don't know which direction to take because you didn't have a father, or whatever the case may be. So it's ironic that they say girls have daddy issues, but a lot of men have daddy issues.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that plenty of times.
Yeah, we're talking about that. Actually, like 2-3 episodes we talked about that.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I was going to ask you about that. Like, do you actually see any differences when it comes to like, the people that you work with, the patients we work with? Does it like with men and women? So not necessarily just like in the penitentiary, like men and women. Do you see mental health differences between the men and women and the trauma that they deal with? Because I know a lot of us men, a lot of times is usually, like you said, the absent father, the us trying to figure it out, the us needing money to protect the house and be the man of the house. But like, just curious, what's some of the differences you've seen between men and women when it comes to those traumas and those mental health disorders?
So I think that a lot of times, and again, I think it's not necessarily a difference in gender, it's an individual difference. But for example, depression a lot of times in adolescent boys tends to be them acting out. Whereas women are more likely to internalize it. They're more likely to isolate, cry, be sad. Especially adolescent boys, are more likely to act out. So I'll go to juvie and be like, why are you fighting all the time? And what really happens is, I'm depressed. My friend, I lost my friend got murdered, or my brother, he had a gunshot wound, or my dad left, or my mom's never around, or whatever it is. And it comes out as anger and external behaviors, when really it's depression and sadness and trauma and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the biggest differences I see. Also substance use, I think it's pretty equal, men and women turning to substances when they're depressed or they're experiencing any kind of mental health issue. But again, whether it's more prevalent, things are more prevalent in men or women, it always needs to be individualized.
And I feel like what you just said too was like, I know when I was a kid, not knowing how to deal with my anger, I would just punch my walls and just like out, like I didn't know what to do. And it was just, that was my way of releasing it, because I didn't know how to like talk about it or anything like that. I'd just go home and just wail on my walls, like just
right. And
go
that's
crazy.
That's not uncommon. And people, you must have thought like something's wrong or whatever, but that's not uncommon.
No, like I'm crazy.
Yeah, right. And you're not. You were upset. You were hurt. You were disappointed. You were sad. You were angry. You just didn't know. You didn't have a correct outlet. And even me as a kid, I was very angry as a teenager. Very angry. And I was, I used to go at it with my mother, and I used to fight, and I used to get in all sorts of trouble. And I didn't realize that was depression until I went to school and was like, oh gosh, I was super depressed. I mean, I had been diagnosed with depression, but I didn't realize that anger, especially in adolescence, is a symptom of depression.
And it plays a huge factor.
Yeah, I just thought I was being an asshole. It's a huge factor.
Yeah, of course.
What is
All right, so let's circle back. Let's I mean, the prison system. I definitely, there's like 1,000 questions that I have because I'm curious, to know, for one, what you even understand. Like, how do you even build trust when you go to the prison system and you have to assess the inmates? Like, is that like a one-time deal, or is it something where you actually build rapport and you're constantly assessing people?
So it depends. Sometimes I assess inmates one time, and sometimes I have them for a while. Is it on an inpatient unit, on an outpatient unit? Am I their therapist? Am I just acting as clinical director? I've had many roles in the prison, so it depends. But I think at the end of the day, building rapport and building trust with an inmate starts with treating them like a human being and not like an inmate. At the end of the day, these are still humans. And so, 99% of the time with inmates, you treat them with respect, they'll treat you with respect. You don't come at them and belittle them or treat them like they're less than, or just treat them like a criminal. Because, okay, you're a criminal, but you're also a million other things. You're probably a son or a father or a worker, a cousin, a brother. You have a million other roles in your life. So look at it like that. And then you, like I said, you talk to them with respect. Of course, you have your couple of assholes that are going to be disrespectful and F you and call you a bitch and, pull out their genitals. You're always going to have that. But at the end of the day, you treat them with respect. They treat you with respect. And respect is earned whether you're in prison or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's universal.
Right. That's universal. If I talk to you in a cordial manner, you're probably going to talk to me in a cordial manner. If I come at you with like, get the F back in your cell, right off the jump, you're going to be like, F that doctor. I'm not talking to her.
Yeah. And it could be shown in so many different ways, right? It's not always just like respect as in like, oh, we have to speak like this. No, respect could be like, oh, I can crack a joke with you. I can, we can build, and you can see that I'm just a normal person just like you. And I'm also not judging you because I'm here I'm here for you, but I'm not judging you that you're in here.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Correct.
Like,
and also I think it's a combination of, we were kind of talking about this off the air, of like book smarts and street smarts, I like to think that growing up in New York and living in different neighborhoods, living in the Bronx for 7 years, I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot.
Shout out to the BS.
She's like, yo, you're a narcissist. You heard?
So I think that, not coming at you from like a textbook perspective, coming at you like before I even try to diagnose or treat you or decide what program you need or whatever it is that I'm doing. Just come at you like a human to a human. Like, what's up? How are you feeling today? Just start with that before going into doctor mode or whatever.
And that'll take you a long way, just in life, not even with just your profession and your career, just like in life, right? It's like you said, it's a matter of just like respect.
Correct.
Now let's circle back. Like, take us back to the beginning. What led you to pursue that career? Like, I think it's a very challenging career.
Yeah.
I don't think we see it often, with female, right? So what led you to that, to pursue that career?
So I always knew I wanted to be a psychologist by the age of 9. I had been diagnosed with depression when I was 9 years old. I had I won't bore you with the long story, but I had stopped eating at the age of 9, just completely stopped eating, and I was a gymnast. And my parents were like, why did she stop eating? They thought, you're trying to be skinny, you're anorexic. Oh, you're trying to be skinny, you're trying to be anorexic. And it was nothing like that. I had so much anxiety that I literally thought that I couldn't swallow. And so my parents took me to neurologists and cardiologists and pediatricians, and I doctor to doctor. And finally they took me to a clinic in New York called the Karen Horney Clinic, which is still there. And this woman started asking me questions that nobody had asked me. She asked me about suicidal ideation and do you not want to be on this earth? And long story short, I left that clinic and I asked my mother, what kind of doctor is that? My mother said, that's a psychologist. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. Because it was the first time I felt heard. It was the first time I felt understood. It was the first time they weren't accusing me of wanting to be skinny or anorexic or saying that I was doing stuff for attention. And, I don't share this often, but I was thrown into therapy and put on Prozac at the age of 9. And Prozac had just come out back then.
Jesus.
So my parents were like, we don't know about this. We don't know if we want our young child on a psychotropic medication. But they had no choice. They were like going to have to feed me intravenously. It was really bad. So that's how I knew I wanted to become a psychologist. And then when I went to college, I went to Lehman College in the Bronx. Shout out.
Hey, shout out to Kingsbridge, 195th and Webb Avenue.
And I took like a dumbed down forensic psychology class. It was called Psychology and the Law. And this like really attractive, ethnic, confident woman comes strutting in, and she starts talking about how she works with psychopaths and sex offenders and gangbangers and drug dealers and cartel lords. And I was like, what?
Sign me up.
Yes. Like in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, because of the way society portrays it in the media, I thought forensic psychologists were just old white men. We're just boring old white men. I never thought a woman or an ethnic woman or an attractive woman could command respect in with that kind of population. And of course I was sold, you know, true crime is so popular now, but I was watching it's like when people say, I was rapping back when I was 5 years old. Yeah, I'm that girl saying that with true crime. Like I was watching true crime back when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I've always watched true crime. So
like first 48.
Yeah, I love the first 48 forensic files when I was like 9. So for me, it was that idea that I could be a ethnic woman and still work with this very dangerous or potentially dangerous population. That's it. I was sold. And so I got my first job working in prisons with a bachelor's degree. I had no idea what I was doing when I was 23 years old. And it just went from there.
Now, as far as like the medication aspect, do you ever look for alternatives as far as like, besides like, obviously you need to take your medication, stuff like that, but do you kind of ask like, or just be like, hey, would you be open to like maybe like meditation or like something other than medication?
Yeah, absolutely.
For like their mental issues and stuff like that.
For sure. And again, case by case, individual basis. I'm a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. So I don't prescribe meds. That's for psychiatry. Do I think that some people absolutely need medication? Yes. I think people with major mental illness, schizophrenia, hear voices, bipolar disorder, people who don't sleep, people who become actually dangerous, which is rare when they're unmedicated. Absolutely. But as a psychologist, my first push is always alternatives. You know, it's talk therapy. It's, engaging in exercise. It's proper sleep hygiene. It's nutrition. It's meditation. It's breathing exercises. It's all of that. However, as somebody who's been a patient and the doctor, I've seen both sides. I'm not going to lie, Prozac saved my life, but I was in a dire situation. Like I was really not well, not eating. And people who, I think we live in a country where big pharma controls everything.
Sure.
And it's just like everything else, it's profit driven. Do I think medications are overprescribed? Yeah. Do I think medications are abused? Yes. Do I think there's a profit motive which convolutes whether or not people need medication? Yes. Have I also seen that psychiatry is an absolutely amazing field and that psychotropic medications save lives? Yes, absolutely. So I've seen both sides of it. I think, once again, just like I always preach, it's a case-by-case basis. It needs to be individualized. Some people can do well with meds. Some people don't need meds. It depends. But yeah, I agree. Alternative approaches, meditation, journaling, therapy, exercise, sleep, all that kind of stuff I just mentioned is absolutely necessary. Because I think people are too quick to pop a pill and not do the work.
Yeah. I mean, something you're just masking it. But that's what I'm saying. Like in the prison system, I don't know. And I've had this conversation with a cousin of mine that he's very well into just like the meditation world and just, mental health and everything like that. And he was locked up for some time and, he had felonies and stuff like that. And I always told him, like, I think that, like, it'd be dope to have like a meditation, something like for like inmates or something like that to like teach them how to, meditate or anything like different than just like, here's your pills or here's whatever, obviously you read, a lot of people read in prison and stuff like that. But I feel like programs of like meditation and stuff like that can allow them to really kind of get a hold of their mind, and be a better rehabilitation for them to get released and, not have like that abrupt, re-enter into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in California, there's actually, I'm just going to shout them out. There's a program called the Yoga Prison Project. I worked with them for a little bit when I was in California. They bring yoga teachers in to do, and it's so amazing. You see these hardened criminals with like swastikas on their face, or they got like, some crazy rap lyric on their neck, and they're like buff, and they're doing like yoga pose. It's amazing.
Only God can judge me.
Yeah, only God.
That's
only
the hood favorite. That's the hood favorite one, man.
That is the hood favorite. Only God can judge me. You see these hardened criminals with these crazy tats and these scars, and they got like a gunshot scar to their face, or like $160 right here, as they say in Rikers. doing yoga pose, but it's amazing because it actually, there's research that shows that it lowers violence. It lowers assaults on inmates, assaults on staff in the prison system. So what you talked about, programs with meditation and yoga and learning, you know, how to properly channel your emotions, those are necessary.
How do you think that would be, like, how's that integrated? Like, you would have to just go to the prison and like sell like your service, or like would this have to be like a contract through the state?
Usually it's a contract. So, you know, there are federal guidelines, there are federal rules about what prisons are supposed to provide to inmates, a certain amount of mental health, a certain amount of, now, are there ways
Some more than others.
Yeah, some more than others. And is there ways to cut corners? Of course, privatized prisons cut corners all the time. They do the bare minimum so they can pocket the profit, right? But in a more advanced prison system like California, they have, you know, they'll have a yoga class once a week or twice a week. They have Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous come in there and run meetings for free because, you know, part of AA and NA is doing service. You have, you know, church services, Muslim, Judaism, any kind of services. You know, it depends. It depends on the state. It depends on how much that the politics in that state and the, you know, socioeconomic factors in that state care about rehabilitation, care about, you know, making sure inmates are not going to recidivate or get the proper treatment or programs. It varies so much in this country. I mean, you take a California inpatient prison and a Florida inpatient prison, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's opposite. It's opposite. Nothing resembles.
Yeah, a lot of it comes to politics and
money.
What's the budget for it, and what do we want to pocket, and then what do we want to actually put towards the budget? I mean, we got to say it, you know. I mean, again, my opinion, but you know, we're not stupid. You know, we see the obvious, right? We state the obvious. So that's that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go locked up over here. I know that for a fact. Fuck that. I mean, I never knew. I know from just up north that you know, it's from what I've heard. There's a lot of programs. I never heard like that was something down here. I thought Miami would be nicer because it's a nicer city, but
No.
I don't know.
It's business politics.
It's just
right?
business. Yeah, and New York prisons do have a lot of programs. I remember there were a lot of programs for truly mentally ill inmates to be separated and not preyed upon. Rehabilitation programs. Let me tell you something. In California, New York, you cannot go from being in confinement right back into society. It's literally like illegal. There's a step
confinement,
down.
Like solitary?
Like ADSAD, solitary, the box, whatever you want to call it, the hole. You cannot go directly from confinement, solitary, the box, the hole, back into society. You have to do a step down program, which makes total sense. You have to be reintegrated into socializing with others, making sure you're not paranoid, making sure that your mental health is okay, you're not depressed, and then you slowly reintegrate back into society. In Florida, I've known guys who have done years in solitary confinement go right out to probation. From your own cell, dark black hole that you've been in 23 hours a day. Right back into society. And then it's like, oh, wait, he reoffended? That's crazy. How come he reoffended? What an asshole. It's like, what did we do to make him not reoffend?
Now, do you think like long stems of solitary, like, do you think that it works, or do you think that it worsens?
No. Okay, so I'll put it this way. There's actual, you know, evidence research that shows that long stints in solitary can alter the brain, can alter the neurology. It will make you paranoid. It can make you psychotic.
In a negative way.
In a negative way.
Okay.
It can make you paranoid. It can make you psychotic. It can make you, you know, hear and see things that aren't there. It can make you mistrustful. It literally alters the neurology of the brain, right? That being said, I have worked with some criminals that are so horrific and so psychopathic that they absolutely have to be separated from others, or they will continue to rape and murder and shank, you know. So it's not an all or none solution. Some guys have to be separated. Some guys are still preying on other inmates while they're in prison. They're completely high on psychopathy. They're completely psychopathic. Do I think that means you put them in a black box for years? No, because that's going to make them worse.
Yeah.
I think we need to move forward for once and for all and find alternative solutions. You know, it's not just punitive. Sometimes it's for the safety of others. Like, this guy is so bad. He's always fighting, always shanking, always raping, always murdering, literally. Yeah. He cannot be around others. So he needs to be confined. But again, does that mean a black box for 23 hours? That's not going to solve
I
anything.
feel like that's
an
the easiest solution. That's the easiest solution that they take.
And it's not going to make him better. It's going to make him worse.
I'm curious because, going back to you, because I know you said that, you've dealt with, your own things starting from 9, so how did you overcome that? Because at 9 years old, of course, the first thing is going to probably be meds and all that.
Right.
But I'm curious to know about your journey when it comes to that. Like, how did you overcome that? Do you think that it's like an ongoing thing? Like,
absolutely.
Is it just like what resources did you have at that moment besides whatever they prescribed you?
Right.
And also moving forward now that, you're an adult and
right.
you look back and say, oh, I've been here since 9 years old. What else have you done to kind of keep yourself sane and keep yourself moving forward? Because I feel like it's not just a one-time thing. I feel like it's an ongoing thing that people need to hear about.
Absolutely.
About how to get the right treatment. And again, besides the meds, what else can you practice to not only be better, but continue to be better as you get older?
Right. So I think that's such a great question. So I should clarify that it's not just that my parents, had me thrown on Prozac. They also put me in therapy. Like, it wasn't just meds. I was in therapy. So I was very lucky. I was put in therapy at age 9.
Is that taboo in your culture?
So my parents are very, very kumbaya liberal. They worked for the United Nations. They were very save the world.
I didn't want to derail you, but I just know from a Hispanic culture, this is like,
oh, absolutely not.
For one, there's no money for it. There's no money for it. And then for two, it's like,
right.
It's
and that is, so my father is originally Indian from East Africa with a Muslim background. Now, my father's was a non-practicing Muslim. My mother's a non-practicing Catholic. She's French, from France. I'm a mix of everything. But you're correct. In the Indian African culture, it was like, no, it's very like Latinos. It's very like, most cultures in the world, actually. It's just hush, hush. Your crazy uncle's in the basement. Don't say anything. We're not going to therapy. That's for bougie, white people. Yeah. So very much. And it was like, yeah, okay, we'll give you Prozac, but don't tell anybody. Just take your meds and shut up. The French culture, a little more, advanced with the mental health, so to speak, mental health. But yeah, it was taboo in that side of my family. But thankfully, my parents were, like I said, they were very progressive, kumbaya, we are the world, United Nations. So they were pretty much for it. So back to your question, I was in therapy. I've been in therapy essentially my whole life. As an adult, I've chosen to continue to go to therapy. I am an open book about that. I see my therapist every Monday. I would not go a week without seeing my therapist. Not just because I think it's, I'm biased. I'm a psychologist. I think everybody should have a shrink. But also,
It's like, call me.
Yeah. But also, working in prisons, I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot.
You've gone through your own.
Yeah, I've seen some shit that I need to get out and talk about. And if I want to be the best doctor to my patients, I need to make sure I'm okay. So that's one. Therapy, I've been on meds as an adult if I've needed them. To me, a huge one for me that has saved me my whole life is exercise. I've always been athletic. I was a gymnast. I played basketball. I kickbox, yoga. I have a personal trainer now. So I train at 4 to 6 times a week. And it's not just because I want to look cute and be in a bikini. It's because for me, people always ask me, like, I see on your Instagram, you post your stupid workout videos. And I'm like, I'm going to continue posting my workout videos. You know why? Because
this is part of my journey.
It is. It's, I make my stupid little workout videos and I make jokes. I'm a fitness influencer. It's because it's such a huge part of my life. It's so important for me to exercise, to be active, meditation. I don't belong to any religion, but I do believe in prayer. I believe in balancing, going out with friends. Sometimes I tend to isolate and overwork. I'm a workaholic. So I have friends that pull me out of that. Like, no, we're going out to eat.
Yeah.
Come meet me to eat.
Got to disconnect.
Disconnect. Going to the beach. I ride my motorcycle. I have a motorcycle.
Hey, motorcycle.
Biker girls.
Yeah, I'm a biker girl, and my motorcycle is another extra level. So I think it's about balance. I think it's about a little bit of everything. Some friends, some socializing, some beach, some workout activity, some exercise, eating right. For me, getting good sleep is huge. I need to sleep. I will put my phone on do not disturb and take a nap if I have to. I don't care. Sleep is life. Yeah. So
I've never been a napper. I feel like I need to I'm always like if I'm gonna sleep, I want to sleep duration. Like I can't just be like, oh, let me take a 15 minutes sleep.
My sister is like you. My sister's like, she's not a napper. I love napping. Napping is life.
I feel like I know it's good. Like I know that they're saying like there's studies of like, a quick like 15, 20 minute nap is really good for you. But I feel like I just wake up and I'm like, oh.
Bro. No, but if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Yeah,
some people are nappers, some people are not. If it doesn't work for you, don't force it.
I can't wrap my head around closing my eyes when it's broad daylight outside for 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever thought about. Like, I have shit to do, you know, but
Right.
that's also, it also hurts me because there's times that I'm tired, but I need the coffee, I need this, I need that to get through it. But sometimes I'm not my help, but I just can't fall asleep during the day. I barely sleep at night. I sleep like 5 or 6 hours
I haven't
a
even
night.
gone down the coffee route because I don't want my body. I mean, this maybe psychoanalyze me if you want, but I'm like, I feel like I don't want my body or my mind to be dependent on anything.
Right.
So I haven't really gotten to coffee because then I don't want to have the coffee, and then like the next
need it
morning I'm
every
like,
morning.
okay, now
Right.
I need my
Right.
coffee, and be like those person like, oh, don't talk to me. You know, I haven't had my coffee yet. So
Right.
Yeah.
But
I hate people
But
that
you
do
do
that.
drink alcohol.
yeah, but that's
Socially.
different.
Socially.
That's different.
Every other
I
Tuesday.
think social drinking is totally fine, but I think coffee should be the same. Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
If you're having 1 cup in the morning, okay. If you're drinking coffee because you need to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 comes throughout the day just to stay up,
Then you're
that's
just
a
lazy.
problem.
Yeah.
But it's the same. Like, I love Nutella. If I could, I would eat Nutella all day. I would eat chocolate and Nutella all day. I fucking love Nutella.
It's like toothbrush in it.
I would. I absolutely would. I just think everything in moderation. Even exercise. Have you seen people become obsessed with the gym and steroids and bodybuilding, and they're 4 or 5 hours in there and they're unwell?
Then they got to keep that. They got to keep that
It's
forever.
like the disease of more. Everything in moderation. Drinking in moderation. Food, Nutella in moderation. Exercise in moderation. Sleep in moderation.
Yeah.
And what works for you might not work for someone else too.
Now, what would you recommend? You know, being that you said everything that you've used, right? Especially therapy, right?
Right.
A lot of people don't have the option for therapy,
Absolutely.
especially like in the middle school, high school
Totally.
ages, right? Like, so what would you recommend? Might be some other outlets that they can take to start maybe like their therapeutic journey on the road to like getting better,
Right.
you know, with what they're dealing with.
So people, there's this idea that therapy is expensive, and it is. It's expensive. We have school loans and we have the loans to pay, and people think that they want to blame the therapists or the clinicians, but we have no choice. Insurance companies don't pay us back well. They'll pay you for Prozac real
Yeah.
quick, but they won't pay you for therapy, which is bullshit. You know, like, oh, you'll pay for the pill, but you won't pay for you to address the underlying problem. So yes, there are a lot. If you even just Google low cost therapy, you will find resources in your neighborhood. Okay. I would suggest reaching out to a community clinic. Another great resource is reaching out to schools. So for example, Miami is very lucky in the sense that we have FIU, we have Barry, we have Nova, we have Albizu, we have so many schools here. They have students training in their clinics, so sometimes you can get therapy for $15, $15
Yeah.
because
And open to the public.
open to the public. Yeah, this is for anyone. So I think there was a time when therapy was only for the elite and the rich. I think thankfully we're getting to the point where it's now more affordable and accessible to people of low socioeconomic status. Those are just a couple things. If you really just Google low cost therapy or schools or look for community clinics, you can find that. But as far as other outlets, I think there are a lot of peer support groups that are out there, even on telehealth. Like there is a support group for everything. And I'm not saying it's the same as a licensed clinician because it's not.
Yeah, but it's a start.
It's a start. Somebody's going through a divorce. I have a friend who's going to a divorce support group. It's peer support. It's free. You know, if you
narcissism support groups.
narcissists won't go. They won't go to the support group. But yes, there are actually support groups for people who are dealing with narcissists. There are tons of them. If you just Google support group for people who have narcissists in their lives, yeah. Substance abuse, depression, anxiety, people who have been victims of gunshots, violence, car accidents, trauma.
Something for everything.
There's somebody for everyone. I mean, thankfully with technology, if you just Google, literally, you just Google, I need help with such and such, you'll get a list of resources. So I kind of sometimes call bullshit on people who are like, I can't afford it or there's nothing out there. Yes, there is.
There's something that you can
there
start
is.
with. At
Yeah,
least,
because even when I was in school and I was broke as hell and I was eating tuna out of a can and I was barely getting gas in my car to go to work, I found a way. Like I found
you got
a
tuna?
way.
Shit, that's a luxury.
Yeah, right, yeah,
I was on
exactly.
ramen. I was on that ramen diet for years. Like
Ramen and
shit.
tuna.
Yeah.
You know, I found a way. I found a like a psychiatrist who was catering to low income people, and what he would do is because medications were so expensive, he was giving out samples, which is legal. You know, if I've determined you need 20 milligrams of Prozac, you can't afford your Prozac. Before Obamacare saved my life. You know, here's some samples that I got from the pharmaceutical company. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And I'm not
1,000%.
I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's where it should be. But if there's a will, there's a way. For sure.
So definitely find your community. There's a community for out there. I feel like that's the message here. Like
Absolutely.
there's a community. Like anything that you're dealing with, there's
not alone.
You're not alone, and there's somebody or at least somebody or some group that can start you on your journey to the healing.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Take it away, kid. You have the last question, no?
Yeah, I do. Oh, that's the last question already?
Yeah.
You good on your end?
Yeah. I know how
You got everything all out?
Yeah, I already know how to flow, bro. Come on. You know who you're talking to.
Clearly.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, well, let's fast forward a little bit. I want people to know a little bit about your journey now, where you are now with your practice, you know, because for one, obviously what we want to do with this platform is obviously speak about the things that we're speaking about, because awareness is the number one thing. But we also want to make sure that we let all the listeners know also where they can find you and what you're doing. So talk to us a little bit about your practice now, and then what they can expect, or if anybody's looking for any type of help, what you can assist with when it comes to that here in Miami or anywhere if it's telehealth.
I very much appreciate that. So I basically, after working in prisons on and off for 20 years, I got prisoned out when COVID hit. I was like, I'm done. I'm prisoned out. You know,
I mean,
but really,
it's
you know, I realized that I was getting burnt out and that I was not, I was desensitized. I mean, guys were doing crazy stuff and I was just like, I'm going to my office to eat lunch. And it's like, whoa, you know, you have to self-check, because if you're becoming desensitized, you could miss something. You know, guys would be like, yo, doc, I'm suicidal. And I'd be like, no, you're not. Go back to your cell. But it's like, I was like, wait a second, Lina, like you're
on the clock. Like you're doing a job.
Attention.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave prison. It was very scary, but I started my own practice. So I have my own forensic and clinical psychological practice. It's called Rise Psychological Services. That's the name of the website. And the IG handle. I think I also have a YouTube page, but I have not been posting on there. And so I do I still work with forensic populations, but in a different capacity. So instead of being in the prisons 8 hours a day and just being like, oh my God, now I go in, I do evaluations for the courts, and I leave. So I do a lot of, for example, competency to stand trial. If somebody's very, very mentally ill and they don't understand their rights and they don't understand the trial process, I'm the person they'll call to say they can't go to trial. Like, it's not fair. They need to go to a hospital. A lot of juvenile evaluations, kind of making a case for the defense, not making a case, but speaking the truth. Like, this kid is not a bad kid. He has trauma. He has depression. He has anxiety. He has ADHD, whatever. I also do law enforcement screening. So anybody who wants to be a cop, you know, in certain counties have to go through me to do a psych eval. I also do clinical evaluations. If somebody's wondering, what's my diagnosis? Something's wrong with me, I don't understand, or I'm having mood swings, or I'm having these thoughts or things that come to me. I do psychological evaluations, come up with a diagnosis and a treatment plan. So it's cool because I do a little bit of everything. I make my own schedule. I work for myself. I have a couple therapists and doctoral students that work for me and help me out. And it's amazing. Like, I really never thought I would open my own practice. You know, they don't teach you how to run a business in grad school. So I was like literally keeping track of my invoices on a Word document. My friends were like, you need QuickBooks. So I was like, what the hell is QuickBooks?
You're like, I got a note app. Like, it doesn't erase.
I have a Word document. So it's all trial and error. You know, I had to get an accountant. I was like, oh, you better pay your taxes now that you have a business. You know, even getting a website. I mean, you guys are probably more knowledgeable and all that kind of stuff than me, but they didn't teach you that.
Well, we're not.
So you're not. Well,
Chat GPT.
Chat GPT is what's up. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Rise RISE Psychological Services, and I also have some webinars if you guys are interested about learning about psychopaths. I'm a CEU provider, continuing education credit provider in the state of Florida. So if you're a clinician and you want to learn about psychopaths or psychosis or malingering, I have some webinars on my website. Give me a DM, I'll give you a discount.
What's the website?
www.risepsychological.com.
Right,
Psychological.
Yeah, and if somebody sends me a DM on IG, I'll give a discount code.
What was the IG? I don't think.
My handle. God, what's my handle? Rise underscore psychological underscore service. It's the longest handle. I should probably change it.
I'm gonna need you to abbreviate that.
It's like Dr. underscore Lina.
Bronx underscore 2003. We out.
Rise Psychological Services.
Awesome.
Word.
So.
Oh man! So for our listeners, Dr. Haji.
Yes.
This question is just so we can know you on a personal level, not career level. What's something that you've experienced that you just wish somebody had taught you before you experienced it and you went through it?
That's a tough question because I could probably have a million answers.
Run a business. A.
Run a business.
Pay my taxes.
Yeah.
B.
Pay your school loans. That's a big one.
You think so?
You could defer that. Right?
You can only defer maximum 5 times. Trust me, I learned the hard way. I have 2 master's degrees and a doctorate, so I don't even want to tell you what my school loans look like. Okay, I think taking accountability. Is my best advice.
Okay.
I think for a long time, I didn't understand that I'm responsible for my life. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that other people or other factors play a role in your life. I've had some things happen to me. I've had horrible experiences. I've had people do not great things to me. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible for the way I react. Much easier said than done. But I think that is a huge lesson I learned in adulthood, that you are accountable. The way you know, people can do horrible things to you, but if you don't react to that, or you choose to take a higher path, so to speak, your life it's life changing.
It can have a complete different outcome.
Yeah. And I don't think it's that easy, and I don't think that it's that cut and dry, and I think that's a blanket statement, oh, take accountability. But I think in the real sense of it, if you take accountability for your own life and you are responsible for your actions, you'll have a better life. That's my biggest lesson.
Respect. I mean, that's crazy, because I feel like nowadays, and we actually had this conversation offline, cough, cough, but as far as just dealing with people that don't take accountability, where it's like, you know, you're wrong.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's just like the victim mentality too plays into it, where it's like, oh, like my life is this hard, and you know, this shit didn't work out for me. It's like, yeah, dude, you know what I mean? Like, shit happens to everybody,
right.
But that doesn't give you the right to be this, you know, this way, or, you know, take accountability for the shit that you're doing. And it's just like, you're in charge, man. If you want to change it, then fucking change it.
Totally. And
like,
again, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think some people have some very serious problems, and they need help and they need support, and, you know, but yeah, at the end of the day, you know, we are what we do or what we don't do. And I'm not going to say I had a victim mentality, but for a very long time I blamed others, because it's easier to blame others.
I had that.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it was my dad's fault. It was my mom's fault. It's society's fault. It's racism's fault. It's this. And it's like, at the end of the day, okay, you know that all that happened or all that exists. What are you going to do about it is the question. Are you going to sit in your shit and feel sorry for yourself? Or are you going to get up and do something different? And that, for me, was life-changing.
And that's not going to go away. You know, that's the problem. It's like, no matter how much we evolve and how much, you know, it's not going to go away.
Right.
So, you know, just accept it. ARM is what we call ARM, right? Acknowledge it, respond to it, and then move on.
Right.
Well, you with the acronyms lately, bro.
That's a sales. You should know that you're sales.
Last week was like triple P or 3 Ps or something like that.
Oh, protect, provide, and prepare.
Yeah, I was like, bro, what the fuck? This
No, but that's my own thing, though. Protect,
yeah,
provide,
but like
and
now
prepare.
you're coming
I
up
like
with all
that.
these acronyms nowadays. I'm looking at you like a Tony Robbins fucking contract or something.
I like them.
We had Chris.
Yeah.
Mazzara.
Mazzara.
Oh, Mazzara.
Right,
Yeah.
Mazzara, right.
So he works for Tony Robbins. But anyways, moving along. But no, that's beautiful. And listen, we want to just take the time. Unfortunately, you know, we have to cut it. We have to start wrapping it up. But we want to take the time to thank you, honestly, for taking the time on your busy day to join us here. As we mentioned before, we're using this platform. It's something that's it's not being discussed, you know, and anyone that can come and share their journey, their story, you know, their value, what they're doing for the community, you know, we want to have on, because I feel like everything starts with just a conversation.
Agreed.
You know, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter what you've done, where you come from,
Right.
or it doesn't matter what your title is.
Right.
At the end of the day, we want to just bring awareness.
Agreed.
You know, we want to bring awareness. So we want to thank you again for just taking the time
Thank
to
you.
share your knowledge, sharing everything that you have, and we definitely want to make sure that anything that we do in the future, any type of event,
Yes.
you know, definitely bring you on.
For
You
sure.
know,
Yeah, for like webinars or
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that you're doing that you need to be pushed, or an event or something like that. We talked offline about the thing that we're looking to do. But just
I'm
for
totally
you
in.
on your aspect of if you're having any projects or anything that you need, you know, support or people in seats or whatever, you know, we're at your service.
Thank you. And let me also say, what you guys are doing is amazing. I can't thank you enough for having me on. I really appreciate you giving me a place to speak and listen to me, because I can talk shit all day. But
So can we.
anything you guys are doing, you know, for the community, for mental health, I'm a phone call away. I'm in. You don't even have to ask. I'm in.
Awesome. So we appreciate you again, Dr. Haji, for taking the time. You're always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
You know, there's always more. You know, if it was up to us, we'd do a 4-hour podcast. But you know, we know the attention span of humans are not there yet. But we'll take it away. You know, that's anything else you have on your end.
No, again,
Thanks
appreciate you
again.
for coming through, and you know, same thing. We're only a call away. We exchange numbers, whatever you need for your business or anything. And again, for the thing, what is it?
RisePsychological.com.
RisePsychological.com.
Yeah.
All right. So for your services, it's the same website.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys know any type of psychological
Services, yep.
services, anything you guys need, hit your girl up.
Yeah. Or hit us up, hit us up on our DMs and we'll connect you. We'll connect you. Anything that we can do on our end, we're applauding everything you're doing. It's something that you're standing on and we're standing with you, and we're looking to continue to this, this relationship moving forward.
And you stand for the whole motive of this podcast.
No, we're best friends now. You guys don't have a choice. We're best friends.
For the resties.
Matching tattoos.
No, like Will was saying to when he was alluding to it now, I mean, prolific for us is doing things in abundance. It's an actual definition of it. But everybody we have on here, we have you on here because we feel that's what you're doing, on your end. So we want you to be part of this community that we want to build and everything that we want to do moving forward. So welcome to the family.
Thank
you are prolific.
And this is episode number 40, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Thank you again, Dr. Haji, for taking the time. And you know, cheers me?
Yeah, I just wanted to get that.
One last cheers. This is episode number 40, ladies and gentlemen. Always like, subscribe. Make sure you guys are following us, and we'll make sure to drop all the information down below.
Yes, sir.
This is one of your hosts again, checking in. No Berto. I'm doing the legal name a lot more now.
Yeah. My boy's grown, and your boy Will. Episode 40.
Episode
Dr.
number 40
Haji.
With
Thank
Dr.
you so
Haji.
much again.
Thank you so much for your time.
Peace.
Thank you guys. See ya.
Cause they thought I'd never make it. See me fall down and they celebrate it. Learn how to win with no demonstration.